Lifecycle funds, or L funds, are the most popular choice for federal employees and their TSP. But if you're choosing this, you need to ask two questions. Is it the best option for you? And are you maximizing all of the features in the Lifecycle funds in your thrift savings plan? In this episode, we're going to show you some of the basics of the L funds and also show you how we choose the L funds in clients' TSPs. And here's a spoiler alert, it's not the number on the L fund. Welcome, I'm Ed Smith, President of Valor Wealth Partners, where we're dedicated to educating federal employees on how to maximize value from their complex and often underutilized benefits. Since their introduction in 2005, the Lifecycle Funds have been a great addition to the Thrift Savings Plan. Before they were introduced, the standard or default option for your Thrift Savings Plan, if you didn't pick a specific funds, was to go in the G Fund, which means you could be in the G Fund for 30 years without even knowing that you're in one portfolio. But now that you have the L funds, they put you automatically in the year that is based off of when your expected retirement is. They're also a great way to have diversification at a very simple level. One of the misunderstandings is that the number is the year that you plan on retiring. The number is the year that you plan to make distributions from your thrift savings plan, which could be two completely different years. If you rely specifically on the number being the year that you're going to take distributions, you may be way off of where your risk level should be. So what you should do is get a good evaluation of what your risk is and not just simply rely on a number or a year of when you're going to take that distribution. But we'll get back to this later on when we try to figure out what the best selection is for you and how you can maximize the L funds and really truly win with using Lifecycle funds in your TSP. To understand the Lifecycle funds and the TSP funds in general, you should really understand the concept that there's two basic types of investment management. The first is active management. And this is when you're actively changing your investments or your portfolio based off of economics or a planned theory that you have. Now, with this type of active management, what you're doing is you're changing things around a lot. And so if you believe that your expertise will be better than what a standard level would be, then active management can be really good. But the dangers of this is that you can overmanage a portfolio. You can make changes when you shouldn't. There's something called the greed-fear cycle. And in the greed-fear cycle, what it's saying is that people get greedy when the markets are doing really well. And they over-anticipate what's going to happen, so they get more aggressive and they put more money into aggressive investments. And then what happens? The stock market crashes. And then they go down maybe 40, 50%, and fear sets in. And at that point, they get paralyzed and they sell off all of those aggressive investments and they buy very conservative investments. And then when the market's down, the markets rebound and they go back up. So what happened was you bought aggressive investments at the top of the market and you bought safe investments at the bottom of the market, which is the exact opposite of what you should do. So when you're looking at active management, you really want to be able to make sure that you're taking advantage of good guidance and controlling some of these emotional behaviors, because those emotional behaviors could cause active management to be very bad for you. Now again, active management is on two levels. One of them on the specific investments, like the mutual funds and finding out which investments should be in those funds. And then on the other side, on the overall portfolio. So you have active management on two different levels. The second type is passive management. And this is where all of the TSP funds live. And this is a set it and forget it philosophy. This is really good when you believe low cost is the key factor in success or long-term success for you. While this can be very good and it can save you a lot of money on fees, the problem with passive management means that you may be complacent and you may not look at your portfolio. And if you don't look at your portfolio, both on the investment level and the portfolio level, it could cost you a lot of money. And contrary to that, there was a conversation or an article that I read recently, and it was about somebody interviewing somebody from Fidelity. And when they interviewed them, they asked the executive, what are the best performing accounts that you have at Fidelity? And they joked around and saying, I'm sure they're probably the people that have already passed away. And the executive replied, well, pretty close. They're actually the people that lost their account numbers. Because they weren't doing that greed fear cycle we talked about in the active management, they've been able to do a very good job because they haven't been messing around with it. So on a portfolio level, not overly active managing on your portfolio can save you a lot of upside and downside. It can also save you a lot of emotional grief. So both active management and passive management can be very good. I personally believe a combination of the two of them is what can really get you good success. You want to be able to use low-cost solutions when you're not getting any value from specific types of investments, but you want to use active management when you can increase it because of expertise or specific strategy or looking at economic situations. So I believe a combination of these two. Now, with the TSP or Lifecycle Funds, you don't have the option on the investment choices. You are only getting passive management, but you can actively manage your portfolio. With the Lifecycle Funds, they are actually doing the passive management for you. But if you choose the individual funds, that's where the active management can come in. Hopefully this has been a little bit helpful to try to understand where the TSP fits into those two different categories, the active and passive management. As I just mentioned, the TSP funds are all passive management, and the Lifecycle Funds are the best way if you want to be 100% passive, both on the investments and the management of your portfolio. And the reason why is because the Lifecycle Funds allow for a hands-off approach that will automatically shift your risk levels as you get older. So they automatically change and make you more conservative the closer you get to retirement. Let's take a look at this a little bit closer so you can see all of the current funds based off of January 2021 numbers. As we take a look at this chart, we can see that there's a few more funds that were added in January of 21. They went in and they put ones for every 5 years where they were before every 10 years. And on the L2060, a younger federal employee, they would have a more aggressive portfolio with being the C, S, and I. And on the right-hand side, where you're actually in retirement with the L income fund, 78% of your portfolio is split between the G and the F. So again, a lot more conservative. So having this really good mix and this shifting over time is really good. And time has been proven over and over again by many studies to be the best result in long-term performance. But what's even better is having the appropriate allocation at the right time, and this will do a great job for you. So if you want to be 100% hands-off, the Lifecycle Funds provide a very good option for you to be able to do this. But while we're looking at the picture, I really want to point out that L income fund again. Again, 78% is conservative, and that's really where you should be. But should 72% of your portfolio be in the G fund? In my opinion, I think that is way too much in the G fund. Now, in a 10-year performance, the G fund has performed about 2% per year, and the F fund has performed 4%. And there isn't a lot more risk on the portfolio when you shift to the F. So I think that you're missing a lot of opportunity by having that much in the G. So while I really like the Lifecycle Funds for specific investors, the ones that want to be hands-off, I think that leaving it only to using this type of portfolio, they overemphasize the G fund, and that could be very dangerous because you're missing a lot of opportunity. Obviously, I'm a little biased on using professional guidance. And I think that we can really help you out when you're trying to figure out what's the best allocation for you. But without professional guidance, the Lifecycle Funds can be a really good option for you. Now, if you're using an advisor, you're going to be able to get specific tools that are going to look at the overall portfolio for you and try to be able to make sure you're getting the right portfolio. And we still might use the L funds for you, but it's looking at how it fits in the bigger picture. And while there's a lot of tools out there that can benefit you, and you can say, well, Ed, I can put this into a calculator and they can tell me what I want to be able to do. That is true. But sometimes it's more than just data points. Looking at a person and understanding what they're trying to be able to do and what their long-term results can be can only be done through conversation. And so it's just not always about using an online calculator. Sometimes professional guidance goes a lot more beyond that. I've seen a lot of good intentions from federal employees trying to do a good job of picking the 5 funds individually, but sometimes good intentions get people into trouble. They start off with a really ambitious goal of checking their portfolio on a quarterly basis, and then next thing you know, 5 years, 10 years have gone by and they've never looked at their TSP, and their allocation is way out of whack. Other times, they just didn't know what they were doing in the first place, and they just randomly picked the 5 different funds. And this could have been done from guidance from another employee or a newsletter you read and you never went back and looked at this. And if you're going to do it yourself, if you don't have the expert guidance, and again, that could be from whatever resource you want, it doesn't have to be from a person or an advisor. If you don't have that expert advice, I do recommend looking at the Lifecycle Funds because they can be very valuable and they'll keep you in a risk level that is somewhat proportionate to your retirement, but that doesn't mean that it is exactly for you. It's just using one factor or one guiding factor for you. While this is all really good information, I'm sure you really want to know is how do you pick the best life cycle fund for you? Well, as we talked about earlier, the year on the fund is the year of the distribution you're planning, and that is one way to do them. For me, that's the wrong way. It's the simple way, but it's not going to be the most effective for you or the most specific to your unique needs. In my opinion, you need to be able to match your risk level to the specific fund. And one of the ways you can do that is to take an evaluation. Now, there's plenty of them out there, and you can try to figure out what is best for you. The simple way to think about it is the more conservative you are, the lower the number, or going straight to the L income fund. Again, the more conservative the portfolio. So even though you're planning to retire in a specific year, you could actually take a different year or a different choice based off of where your risk assessment comes in. You can just do a simple way in looking at that, or you can actually do a risk assessment. In the description section, I've put in a link to the risk assessment tool we use, which is called Riskalyze. I've also in the description section put each one of those lifecycle funds with the number of risk assessed on it based off of Riskalyze. So once you take the test, you can go in and look and say, okay, I'm this number and this is what fund I should be using. But not so quick. Remember that when you're looking at risk allocation and the number that you get on the assessment, that is your overall risk score. That isn't your risk score for this specific investment. That's looking at how you look at risk on your whole portfolio. And your TSP is probably just a portion of that. So please, this is one factor or one level that you should be looking at to try to get that risk assessment. We're just trying to give a comparison so you can see, are you relatively in the same range or not? Please take into consideration all of the different factors before you just go and change it based off of one assessment. This is the tool that we choose to use, and there's a wide variety of them out there, so please use what's best for you. Now, if you're still watching this and you've liked the content of the video, click that like button because it knows that we can be talking more about the life cycle funds and we can share this and make sure we are digging down a little bit deeper on these specific topics. So this just helps us know that it's good content and you're liking it, and if you're still watching, you probably do. In summary, if you're going to manage your TSP yourself, the life cycle funds are a great option. But please know why you're choosing a specific L fund. We really want the best for you and your family, so please get unbiased, conflict-free advice. Thank you for your time today, and we look forward to educating you in the next video.